terrible news over the weekend as a gunman killed 5 people and injured 25 at a gay nightclub in Colorado Springs, Colorado. According to the Washington Post, at least 5 people were killed, 25 were injured after a man with a rifle walked into an LGBTQ nightclub here and opened fire, according to law enforcement officials who credited 1 or more clubgoers with subduing the shooter before more people were hurt. The FBI is assisting with the investigation, which officials said is in its early stages. As of Sunday morning, local and federal officials were trying to piece together details about the attack, including what may have led the gunman to the club, the suspect's criminal history, and how the shooter came to possess the weapon the officials say was used in the attack. Charges will probably include first-degree murder, of course, because it is apparently first-degree murder. Around 11:57 p.m. Saturday, police received a call about a shooting at Club Q on North Academy Boulevard. Lieutenant Pamela Castro, a spokesperson for the Colorado Springs Police, told reporters. Colorado Springs Mayor John Suthers said the first officer arrived on the scene within 3 minutes after being dispatched. The suspect was subdued within 2 minutes after that. One person inside the club just before midnight, a person named Joshua Thurman, told the Post that people were dancing as shots began to ring out. We heard the music and then we heard pop, 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 pop. That was it. So I kept on dancing, said Thurman. When I heard another set of shots go off, that's when it clicked in my mind. And that's when I immediately took off and ran for cover. A patron did tackle the gunman inside the club and prevented him from killing more people. So obviously heroic action by somebody who was there to prevent more murder. Nick Greshka is one of the club's co-owners. He said that he and his co-owner had reviewed surveillance video that showed the gunman entering the building and immediately beginning to fire. He says, I don't even know the names of the people who held him down. What they did is incredible. Club Q, which is the name of the club, did have an active shooter protocol, which Grishka's co-owner, Matthew Haynes, had followed to the letter. The 2 owners arrived at the scene minutes after the shooting and gave surveillance camera footage to the investigators. So this immediately raised questions as to who exactly the shooter was. Apparently, the shooter is a 22-year-old with a, as you would guess, serious history of violent imprecations. A person with the same name, address, and date of birth as the suspect was arrested in June 2021 and charged in connection with making a bomb threat in the Lorson Ranch community, a suburb of modest single-family homes on the southeastern outskirts of Colorado Springs in El Paso County, according to a sheriff's office report at the time. A woman had called the sheriff's office to say that her son was threatening to hurt her with a homemade bomb and other weapons. According to the report, after a nearly 1-hour standoff, the shooter, or a person with the same name, surrendered without incident. No bomb was found, according to the sheriff's office. So, once again, we have the specter of a probably insane person committing a mass murder. The question is how this person got his hands on weaponry, why this person wasn't under psychiatric evaluation. This person was known to law enforcement, is what we are learning. This person had threatened his own family. Again, this is a common thread among mass shooters, is that they threaten members of their own family. This happened obviously at Sandy Hook. This happened also in Parkland. The pattern here obviously is person with significant violent tendencies known to law enforcement who has threatened members of his own family. That's a good place to start when you're looking for trying to screen out possible shooters. Now, this has not prevented the entire political and media left from immediately determining that what this was probably a conservative Christian who just randomly decided to get up from a church and go murder a bunch of gay people at a gay club. This is the line that is being taken by every member of the left, which is, if you oppose same-sex marriage, or if you don't like Drag Queen Story Hour, or if you think that children should not be indoctrinated into radical gender ideology or into the alternative lifestyle ideology that suggests that all forms of sexual activity are equally meritorious, that if you're a person who believes, in other words, in traditional social values, this means that you bear responsibility for a whack job murdering gay people at a nightclub. This is the going line today. President Biden said in a statement Sunday, although the motive is not yet clear, we know gun violence has a particular impact on LGBTQI plus communities across our nation, which is a weird statement because the truth is that LGBTQI plus people are traditionally not as gun owning as, for example, more traditionally minded Americans. But okay, says we must address this public health epidemic of gun violence in all forms. We must drive out the inequities that contribute to violence against LGBTQI plus people. I don't even know what that means. The inequities that contribute to violence against like what? We're gonna give tax rebates to people, and this is somehow going to prevent insane mass shooters from murdering gay and lesbian people at a nightclub? But this is the line. The line that is going here is that if you really wish to prevent violence against gay clubs, this means you have to support every element of the progressive agenda, or you are complicit. And this is a game that only gets played by one side of the political aisle. Again and again and again, we see in public life, when there is a threat against a person of the right, when there is an attack by a member of a left-wing organization or an intersectional identity associated with the left against someone else, that we don't tie that to a broader ideology. We don't attempt to suggest that it's the fault of everyone who has general beliefs in a broader social system. Instead, we say, well, that's an individual and he believes an extreme thing, and that person ought to be ostracized, obviously. But when it comes to the right, then the idea is that if a person who we don't even know what his views are on any of this stuff yet, even if it turns out this person has a manifesto that is wildly, horrifically anti-gay, for example, does that mean that everybody who believes that same-sex marriage is wrong, a societally approved same-sex marriage is wrong? Does that mean everybody is now guilty for a person who goes and shoots up a nightclub? This sort of game is really ugly. It's really hideous. And again, it is only played by one side of the political aisle. I've been saying for my entire career, as far as I'm aware, that when you have an act of violence and the person who commits that act of violence is a whack job who is misinterpreting the words of a movement or a politician, that person is not reflective of the movement or politician. When a Black Lives Matter fellow traveler murders Dallas police officers in 2015, that is not the fault of Barack Obama. It's actually not even the fault of Black Lives Matter. When a Bernie Sanders supporter shoots up a congressional baseball game, that's not the fault of Bernie Sanders. And yet the entire left-wing media infrastructure and Democratic Party will immediately shift into, if you don't support every element of our radical social agenda, then you are responsible for murder. It's an ugly, stupid game that is directed specifically at silencing people who disagree with you. And you're seeing the media do this immediately. So the idea here is that this is tied to a broader movement. And you again see this over and over again from the left. So Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez, being irrepressibly foolish, she had a series of tweets on this. So Lauren Boebert, who represents this area, she tweeted out, "The news out of Colorado Springs is absolutely awful. This morning, the victims and their families are in my prayers. The lawless violence needs to end and end quickly," which is a fine statement. There's nothing wrong with that statement. AOC immediately tweeted, "Lauren Boebert, you have played a major role in elevating anti-LGBT plus hate rhetoric and anti-trans lies while spending your time in Congress blocking even the most common sense gun safety laws. You don't get to thoughts and prayers your way out of this. Look inward and change. Unless you reflect the progressive ideology of AOC, you are responsible for murder." So again, if you say that boys are boys and girls are girls, and if you say that we should not surgically mutilate 16-year-old girls who wrongly believe they are boys, this means that you are complicit in a person who had a history of threatening his own mother with a bomb, shooting a bunch of gay people in a nightclub in Colorado Springs. This is the take from AOC. And then she broadened this out. She said, "After Trump elevated anti-immigrant and anti-Latino rhetoric, we had the deadliest anti-Latino shooting in modern history. After anti-Asian hate with COVID, Atlanta, Tree of Life, Emmanuel AME, Buffalo. And now after an LGBT plus campaign, anti-LGBT plus campaign, Colorado Springs. Connect the dots, GOP." Well, the problem is that those dots don't connect. I mean, first of all, the quote-unquote anti-Asian hate attack in Atlanta was directed against sex workers, right? That's what it was. And when she suggests that Emmanuel AME is the fault of Donald Trump, which is what she's suggesting there, Emmanuel AME happened, I checked the date, the day after Donald Trump announced for the presidency. He was not there's no relationship there. When it comes to the Buffalo shooter in his manifesto actively dissociates from Trump. If we're going to talk about anti-LGBT rhetoric and attacks, the Orlando Pulse nightclub shooting was not connected with quote-unquote right-wing rhetoric. It was connected with a person who appeared to be a radical Muslim. Like the only dots that connect here are that law enforcement has all of these people on their screen and they miss every single one of them. That's the dot that apparently needs to be connected. But again, the idea here from AOC and company is always and forever that if something terrible happens, then we can connect it to our political opponents. Alrighty, guys, the rest of the show is continuing right now. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll be getting into Attorney General Merrick Garland appointing a special prosecutor to investigate Donald Trump. We'll be getting to the World Cup and virtue signaling with rainbow armbands, plus a new boss over at Disney, same as the old boss. If you're not a member, click the link in the description and join us.